This episode of This Agile Life has been brought to you by BrilliantAgile.com, providing Agile and Scrum training, consultancy, and personnel.
BrilliantAgile.com. Done right, it's brilliant.
Released in September 2015, This Agile Life, Episode 98, Automate.
The software industry transforms more and more every day. Agile methods are quickly replacing traditional ones. The question is, are you agile enough? This podcast is devoted to agile and lean software development. Time to welcome your agile coaches on This Agile Life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Agile Life, a podcast about what it is like to be agile in the real world. My name is Jason Tice, the Agile Factor on Twitter, and I have a bunch of friends tonight. We are at Agile LINC in St. Louis, Missouri. It's August 2015, and we're having just a podcast here with some people that are at the user groups. So we have a bunch of topics. Let's do a lightning round of introductions. So who are you, and tell us why you're here.
I am Melanie, and I'm here because Jason made me.
Well played.
I'm Tony, and I'm here to learn more about Agile.
I'm Rob, and I'm here to hone my Agile skills myself.
I'm Chris. I like lean.
I'm Joe, and I'm here because Jason is just charismatic, and he makes you want to be in the room.
I'm Jim, because these meetings are always fun, and I want to become a better Agile developer.
And most importantly, Craig Buchek is here, one of our other hosts from This Agile Life. So, Craig, tell us about yourself. How are you doing today?
Doing good. It's good to see you in person for a change. I don't believe that I am the most important person in this room, though.
And one more person has joined us.
And I'm Debbie. I'm here to learn.
Okay. So what we've done tonight, we have thrown a large number of Post-its on the table here that we'll take a picture of so you guys can see if you're listening, that have a variety of topics. And so kind of like Lean Coffee style, is there anyone here at the table who will volunteer they have never been to a Lean Coffee?
I have not.
Tony has never been to these. So guess what? Tony, you're up. Tony gets to pick our first topic that we are going to talk about for about 5 minutes. So, and then after Tony picks, he can hand it off to somebody else. So we got a couple things here. Pick something.
I want to go with automated testing.
Okay, automated testing. So I will share. I put that one in there. And actually, my colleague Melanie is here. She just shared her experience report from the Agile 2015 conference that was about some automated testing. So, Melanie, can you tell us your thoughts on automated testing?
Does anybody else feel that the fix is in and that just mysteriously showed up?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So automation testing is good. What did you ask me?
I said, tell us what you talked about in your paper.
So I talked about some of the benefits of automated testing. Talked about how we now have a good testing pyramid. So a lot of people say that for a best testing practice, you need to have a pyramid that has all your unit tests, as the base of the pyramid, so you have a lot of unit tests. And then as you go up the pyramid, the final tip should be your manual testing.
Okay.
So how we've gotten to achieve that.
So I'm going to ask you guys, who's got a question for Melanie?
Okay,
good.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I was. How long did it take to go from where you had like a crappy pyramid to what you felt was a good pyramid?
So it actually didn't take that long. I think the developers were really excited about, and this is something that they really wanted to do, and it didn't take that long. I want to say no more than a year, unless you think maybe a year's a long time, but a year. But the project started in like 2003, I think, or something like that, and they started doing automation in 2007.
And how much can we talk about the project? Because that thing is just awesome.
You can. I mean, that was given at the Agile conference, so it's out there.
Yeah.
So don't bury the lead. I mean, nuclear weapon detonation detection. Come on.
It's the defeat of weapons of mass destruction.
Yes, and that's sexy. So in addition to automated unit tests, it detects nuclear bombs. That's awesome.
And chemical.
Yeah, and I think the key thing that I know when I read your paper that I really liked was how a challenge I know a lot of people have is, okay, I want to start writing automated tests, but they don't cover my whole code base. So really, I know in the paper you mentioned that we just started and then eventually you caught up.
Yeah.
So, so Craig.
So you really want to mostly test the things that are going to change. The things that you're not going to mess with that code, you're not going to break those things usually because you didn't touch them. So the idea is, as you talked about, you write test as you go. So if I am in this file, I'm going to write a test for this file. And that's how you build. So you basically...
Or if I'm changing this file.
Right. If I'm changing this file, I'm going to write tests for this file. The hard part of that is I have to figure out what it was supposed to do based on what it does in the current code, which may have bugs in it.
So you guys, did you do TDD, test-driven development, or?
Yeah, they do that now, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. What else about automated testing? I got a crazy question. I know we've talked about this on the podcast before, Craig, but I'd like to ask these guys and gals, what do you guys all think about the idea of having a magical percentage of testing? So, like, you need to have 80% of your code under unit test, or what do you guys think? I mean, Melanie, I don't think did you guys have that on your team?
No, well, saying that, I think I actually had somebody come up to me afterwards and kind of ask me that question. And it's, for us, it's really the acceptance criteria has been, so whatever the acceptance criteria is, that's what gets automated from the user acceptance test perspective.
All right, so
Does that make sense? So that's really not, it's not a code coverage. So I thought you were talking about code coverage. So there's not a code coverage, but...
Well, I guess I was asking about code coverage because I know some people, and I was traveling today, and we were talking about, like, in the airport, like, saying that when someone says you have to have 80% covered test coverage of your code, good or bad, or risky is maybe what I'll say.
I think risky because you can totally game that system and cover code with a crappy test that doesn't actually prove any value.
And 80% via what measure, right? There are different measurements.
Yeah, there's different ways to measure that too. So
I mean, it's nice as a guideline in terms of, hey, how are we doing when we start off, just to know if we're covering it, if you're being honest about it. But after a while, it just becomes a meaningless metric.
Like some of the other metrics talked about on the podcast, I think there's more value in the trend than the raw number.
Okay.
So I would say it depends. I've seen some low-level libraries in Ruby that do 100% testing, and it's mutation testing too. So it really does cover what it says it's covering. And to have that confidence in your low-level libraries is amazing. But it's a cost benefit that you have to figure out for yourself.
Okay, so the timer has gone off, so Lean Coffee style, we can vote to continue the conversation about testing, or we could pick, Tony will pick someone else to pick a topic. So, shall we vote? Who wants to vote? 1, 2, 3, vote. Okay, we have voted unanimously to move on.
And you voted not to speak anymore.
Okay. Melanie doesn't want to talk. So pull out. So automated testing is done. Okay, so Tony, nominate someone to pick a new topic.
I like Joe to pick the topic.
Joe picks the topic.
I'm so tempted to pick my topic, but that was just one to make you laugh.
Dude, no. I'm going to put your talk in there.
No, not mine, but we have history of Jason on here just because we were joking about your weird background. What do we got? So we got automating infrastructure deployments, team struggling a little bit on integrating code reviews into process, how to deal with team that's not motivated, bad retrospectives, flow efficiency. Are you talking about Mihail Csikszentmihalyi's book Flow, or what are we talking about there?
Who wrote the flow? Who wrote that card?
I did.
Melanie wrote the card. So Melanie, what is flow efficiency?
Well, I don't know. I feel like I've been hearing about it a lot lately.
Okay.
And I'm on.
Well, I thought Joe's gonna pick.
Okay.
Okay, so Joe has picked. Joe is picked flow efficiency. So Melanie,
yes,
tell us about flow efficiency.
Well, okay, so I'm on a team that's been doing Kanban for a while, and I feel like the Kanban board has also not changed for a while, and so I've heard some talk about measuring flow efficiency. So I'm kind of just wondering, is our Kanban as efficient as it could be? So that's what this is. Sorry, that's not what you expected.
Why do you think the Kanban board should change?
I don't know.
You think things haven't moved across it?
No, that's not true.
The structure?
Well, like whip limits, I don't know. I mean, are we perfect? Is it perfect?
Well, maybe
Very
the
nice.
Kanban board is perfect for your current situation.
Well, so the interesting about Kanban, and Jason's gonna jump in at any minute, so I'm taking up time until he jumps in. Yeah,
No, Jason's not
But
going to talk.
the interesting thing about
Jason's
now he's under the desk.
We found the secret.
So the interesting thing about Kanban is that it takes you as you are. The idea is that it's incremental improvement. So the fact that you want to improve is definitely a good thing. Now, but when you say the flow efficiency, that's the one that if there's a flow efficiency metric, that one's new on me.
Oh, does anyone know? I mean, there is. So the flow efficiency would be really the amount of time. Well, I'm going to define it. I'm going to define a definition.
Without talking.
Yeah, the timing took 27 seconds of silence.
Wow. Where's the bar?
That's good.
So flow, that's really the simple definition, not to go David Anderson on anybody, is really the amount of time you spend actually working on a task compared to the amount of time you spend it spends in a wait state before it's done.
Okay.
So there's a common, and actually this happened, not to put you on a spot, Melanie, but we after the Agile conference we put a picture of a big Kanban board your team uses on Twitter.
Yes, we did.
And people actually responded on Twitter to say, we think your board's too big. You should try to simplify your process.
Right, you should, they did.
And so this idea, and I have seen this where sometimes you have a big board and it allows a team to have too much work in progress. And it just sits around there. And instead you got to get those WIP limits real small so things flow through.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of teams simply don't track this. It's hard. Maybe what you'd find out is maybe you could redesign your board so once you pull a card, it flows through quicker. And that gives you better predictability because
like our backlog is on the board, and as we have a designer on our team, as the mock-ups are done, he pulls the card, does mock-ups, I don't know. So I do think things do sit on the board for a long time, but these are things like before they even get pulled into development. So this is kind of like, I feel like I don't know what you call it, the product. So if I'm going to say the product side, but that might not be right.
So the backlog is too big and they get stale?
So things get pulled off and things get put on.
So why is the designer pulling from the backlog simply because he's got the design done? I thought the developers were supposed to be the ones pulling when they were ready to start.
So this is before the developers even start.
Okay.
So
their board defines your entire process.
Yeah, it goes from an idea to into master.
Well, in my experience, I do less pure Kanban and more using on the Scrum implementations and things like that. But the WIP limit's essential because that really sets up teamwork. The idea being that some people say you want to have a WIP limit of 1 per person or even 1 less. I like to go with like half the size of the team because the idea is that you want people to swarm the problem. So if you can only have 3 things in progress and you have 6 people on your team, that means by definition everybody is pairing up on that thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's great because that forces you to work together, almost pair programming style. Other times, people are like, okay, I'm going to snap if I don't get to touch another card because I can't possibly do anything else. And then you're like, okay, maybe we'll ease off a little bit to keep people sane and keep people from injuring each other. But yeah, I mean, the whole point of the WIP limit is to make sure that you never have stuff going stale. It's always instantly moving from one point to another. And if not, you have people there who can just attack the problem.
Does anybody else, I guess, use the Kanban board for before development?
What's called a full life cycle Kanban board.
Yeah.
Meaning that
we do it for design. We don't usually put, some people will write cards or stories about writing cards and stories, and that's where we tend to say, no thank you.
Yeah, actually, in the 90s when I was at the railroad, we were using Kanban back then, and we have a big board of all of the ideas, and then as they're same thing you're doing with your Scrum now is they go through them and they're grooming and then determine who's going to be doing the design. And that's why I was asking the question, is I thought you were pulling them, the designer was pulling them and putting them in the WIP, and I'm going, well, why? I didn't understand why that was happening. So I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so time has expired, so we'll vote. So shall we continue to discuss the wonderful metric of flow efficiency, or shall we move on? 1, 2, 3, vote.
I just want to say Mihail Csikszentmihalyi one more time, just because, come on, I had to practice that name.
Wow, that was cool. So 5 minutes on flow efficiency, a great metric to determine maybe if you do need to change your board design, so if you, and we'll put some links in the show notes about flow efficiency if you want to go learn more. So, okay, Joe, you picked that one, so nominate someone to pick another one. Oh, spin the pen.
Dude.
Rob is up. Rob is going to pick a topic from our pile here of funness.
All right.
That is a non-movable speakerphone jack.
Copy that.
All right, so Rob, looking.
How to deal with a team that is not motivated.
Oh, how to deal with the team. Okay, great topic. Okay.
Those endorphins are.
Do that.
I can also drop
This and that might go together.
Okay, so who's?
I could also drop me.
So whose topic is this?
I apologize.
Okay, so Craig is gonna. Craig will get it started. So Craig, tell us about it.
I am consulting at a company recently, and there's one team that's just not very motivated. And to pull in one of these other cards here, the retrospectives don't seem to make much progress. And the team lead asked me to offer some suggestions, and so I'm looking for more suggestions. So I actually ended up asking a lot more questions than providing answers, but yes.
Are they not motivated to do work or not motivated to participate in a process?
Yes.
So it would be yes and yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Is the end goal too broad and therefore they don't have no view and therefore can't focus on something?
I think that they, they're not interested in. I mean, they're cogs in this big system, and they don't see the importance of what they're doing. We've talked before about things that motivate. So there's autonomy, mastery, and purpose, and I don't think they have any autonomy. We're not as agile as we say we are. They don't have a purpose, and they don't. It's sort of a vicious cycle. If you stop caring, you're not gonna master anything because you're not working on anything.
By the way, you're referencing Daniel Pink's speech?
Yes.
Speech? Yeah. Just for anybody who's listening. Good speech, TED Talk. Go check it out.
Or a book.
Or book, too.
It seems to me you hit the nail on the head when you said you had more questions than answers.
Yeah.
Because the first thing we started doing here was asking questions. So for me, it would seem logically that you would need to ask the questions to get to the root cause of why they're that way, and then it can give you some idea as to how to approach it. So has anybody sat with the team and literally just come out and ask the team what's keeping you from doing this or what's keeping you from doing that?
So I am scheduled to facilitate one of their retrospectives. And so that's one of the things that I'm going to see. Their retrospective facilitator has been someone, the team lead. So that's sort of a problem. They're not been using anonymous notepad cards. So I'm like, that's a problem. So I'm like, so Jason's been talking a lot about inviting people to try practices. I think what I want to do is show them that they can make an impact on their own happiness and their jobs and actually improve things that they want to improve. And that's where I'm headed so far. But
yeah, I mean, for the Daniel Pink stuff to work, his stuff is geared primarily towards creatives. So I'm assuming they're like a development team, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't agree. I think Daniel Pink stuff is geared toward everybody.
So it's internal motivation. How do we externally motivate people internally?
Well, so you go first.
Rob.
We'll say Rob has something too.
So I wanted to say that Rackspace Chairman Graham Weston several years ago said that most employees want to be a valued member on a winning team with an inspiring mission. Mm-hmm. And Rackspace's culture is extreme customer service, fanatical support to their customers. So their employees have to be engaged. So I guess the question would be, how is the organization answering those three aspects of that question? Yeah. Valued member of a winning team with an inspiring mission.
Jack Zalodek says the same thing. He's a prof over at WashU. He says, teams need three things. They need a vision, they need tools, and then they need you to get the heck out of the way. So the vision is really the key part of anything. They have to have something that inspires them.
Yeah, that's actually the first thing I want to say, like from an agile assessment perspective, is to say, like, does the team have a clear understanding of the vision? So is there a product owner? And this is where we can say, is the product owner doing their job to make sure the team understands the vision?
Nope.
So then, here's what I'll gift you, Craig. Here's what you do in the retro that people might have fun, is like literally have people do the Post-it vision. So, okay, everyone write down what you think the vision is on a Post-it. You know, what are we trying to get done here? And let's all share them, and guess what? They're all going to be different. And then, you know, you can say, product owner, what do we do about this? This is not good. And here's 80 Agile books that say it's not good and all the reasons why, so go do something about it.
Yeah, and check to see the percentage of people who say, our vision is to get all of our scope done on time and under budget.
Or I bet you'll get this. You'll get the infamous, I have no idea what the vision is. They'll put a question mark on the Post-it note. So...
Yeah, I talked to a team once, and it blew my mind. They literally work for a company that cures cancer. And they said, our teams aren't motivated. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, they don't see the value behind our product. I was like, are you kidding me? We're curing cancer. I was like, I can do this in 5 seconds.
Okay, the timer's going up, but this one's rocking. I know there's a few minutes, but we're going to continue this one, so we'll keep the clock going.
What if they did that Post-it thing, but then they like gave it to randomly switched them, and the person who had to try to guess why they wrote the vision the way that it is.
Yeah, there's a game around that.
Yeah, what I just do is say, I put dollar signs. So like, we just want to make money for no purpose, you know?
So there's the team vision and sort of the why are you working here question, which is sort of personal vision.
Yeah. But to me, it's a very powerful thing in retrospective to say, let's all try to do something to express the vision on a Post-it note. And then literally, to me, it's a silent activity. I wouldn't have people explain it, just put them up there. And now let's go silently look at them and see what emerges. And if anything, as a facilitator, your objective would be to do nothing. Invite the people on the team to say, what do you think about this?
And be careful, protect your product owner in that. Don't make it a finger-pointing, beat up the product owner thing, just because they may not have conveyed it appropriately. You don't want to let loose the dogs.
We have a problem that our product owners typically don't show up to things. So I'm not pointing your finger at them.
So you had that Lego thing where the product owner sitting in his office?
Oh yes, I was having fun with John Sextra this week at a workshop where people built a product owner in their office, and we talked about it, and actually that group, it was fine. So, but as you know, John doesn't like product owners in offices, and he knows I sit in one sometimes when I play product owner. So, yeah. But yeah, the key thing is, it sounds like if there is some dysfunction, that's where maybe for you, Craig, your chance to be an advocate for the team, to really go to the sponsor of the team and say, this is data that demonstrates there's a problem in the system. So Scrum, Kanban, Agile, it's a system, and it has defined roles that do things, and if something is just not working, then really that is a leadership issue to say we need to do something about it. So Joe, I think your point's very well taken, that you don't want to offend the product owner, but at the same time we do need to confront the product owner. If the team doesn't understand the vision, product owner is not being effective.
Oh yeah, you don't want to sweep it under the rug. You just don't want to turn it into beat them with sticks situation. It's, hey, they don't understand it. Hey, product owner, would you like to take a minute? Oh, you need a minute to prepare the vision. That's fine.
So one of my definitions of Agile is facing reality.
Yeah, it's facing reality, but then somebody else called the retro. What was it that Julie called it?
Looking back in anger.
Yeah, looking back in anger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
Or a gripe fest. After we had a guy at a company over. Let's have a gripe fest today.
Because they do turn into a.
Another way I thought of approaching this in terms of, if you're looking to get action out of a retro and try to find some kind of experiment to improve, and you're trying to find a baseline, I, without any real proof of it, equate happiness with motivation, and worked on a team for 6 months that collected a happiness metric on all of our stories
up top,
and then we
there it is,
and then we could graph them against feature, and we could graph them against iteration, and we'd say, oh yeah, that iteration sucked because we had story sizes, so bigger stories made us unhappy. But collecting a happiness metric as a baseline to start with, and then move from, and it actually is another thing to talk about then at the next retro.
So, but you're talking about like a happiness about like how happy you were with the completion of the story.
There was no, there was no.
Yeah, how happy are you?
I've taken 2 metrics on one team, and I took them the whole time. One is, how well do you think this team is functioning? 10 is, I couldn't imagine a team functioning more perfectly. 0 is, this team is the worst team I could possibly imagine. The other one is how happy are you mainly with your job? 0 is, I should have quit yesterday, and 10 is, I can't imagine a better job. And so graphing both, and they tend to correlate pretty strongly. You know, if the team's doing well, you're going to be pretty happy. If you're happy, the team's going to be doing better.
We didn't put any restriction on the happiness metric. We gathered it. We gathered it when the story was moved into a certain state, but it wasn't restricted to be about the story. It was just how happy are you with this?
Yeah.
So with
How happy
at
are
the
you
story
with
level?
this? So you said with this.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just do it like for the week.
No, yeah, we used it. We used our tool and we made it a field on our card.
Wow.
You know that we had that experiment like that. Remember the story helper?
yeah, we had Was the story? It was the story clear? So as they pulled the story, they denoted just yes or no.
Did I have to ask one question?
Yeah.
Another one I've heard is change the screensaver or background. So when you go to lunch, set your background either green or red. Green being I'm happy, red being I'm not, and then when everybody leaves for lunch, just walk through and see what everybody's screen is.
I've seen that on a board, like a happy face, smiley face.
Or people I know sometimes, actually I know some people that do it in LINC, like the Microsoft Chat product, or also in Slack, like ways that you do it there.
Jessica Kerr had an article where she talked about you would actually do it in real time in Slack with one sort of icon or word or another. And the problem with doing it at the end of the week is you usually peg it to your happiness right now instead of over across the whole week. So they actually took metrics of how many happies and sads were in Slack over the week.
Yeah. All right. Well, the time ran off a while back, so want to keep going or move on? All right, we've had enough of that one. So let's see how we doing. Maybe we do 1 or 2 more. So who picked that one? Rob picked that one, right? So we got a few left to pick from. So nominate someone, Rob, to
Debbie.
Debbie's right in front. So Debbie, we have a few things left in the hopper of ideas here on This Agile Life, as we're following the path on This Agile Life.
Now, I saw who put this in, but I have a particular reason for picking this one. Automating infrastructure deployments.
Ooh, very DevOps-y.
And I did that. I'm picking it because it does impact your ability to to do your automated testing. Where do I go with this stuff? What are our environments we're building in? So the environments really seem to impact Agile teams. So you can tell us why you put
So
that
I wrote it down because I actually gave a talk on it. A couple of local user groups and the Madison Ruby group. And so basically, now that we have virtual machines, we shouldn't have Snowflake servers. And the Snowflake server is basically every server is different. So when you're manually configuring servers and you have to go touch each one, you're going to make mistakes and every server is going to be a little bit different. So we're trying to get rid of that problem. You end up with brittle servers and to the point where no one wants to touch them because they're afraid they're going to break them. So one of the questions I asked, who has a server they're afraid to touch for fear that they're going to break them? And the other question is, who thinks they can rebuild their infrastructure, all their servers in 10 minutes?
Oh, never. Never.
Right. So that's the goal. Now that we have virtual machines, you should be able to spin up a server with automated configuration in a couple minutes.
Our organizer of our user group just left, so
questions? Or what do we want to talk about?
Well, I would just say do that.
Yeah.
It's I will share. There's a funny story that a few people probably know about. Chris and I were around a team this year where actually I pulled the card off of the board where we actually had a developer who was working a card that said, as a developer, I need to set up the internal private cloud environment so we can test our software, which is a card that really you should not be doing as a developer or if you're doing it, you should do it once and set up your internal private cloud test environment so it's standardized and you never have to do it again.
So when you say you shouldn't have to do it, if it doesn't exist, wouldn't you want to do that as a technical debt then?
I would say that you are going to use some type of a container to set up that environment. So don't just go and get a VM and configure it, your runtime and put your app on it. Do that in a manner where you use a container like I don't know if you
Chef or
Docker or something where I configure that, and then that basically is like a template. So I can say I want to provision 15 of those, and the container is going to ensure they're all the same. From ITIL, that's called positive configuration control, and it means you're maintaining positive control over all your environments to keep them in sync. And really what you should do then is it is a discipline to say that any changes you need to make to that environment, you maybe want to hack them or spike them out on the node itself, but then you want to figure out whatever you need to do to either put that into your build so it's deployed, or maybe it goes into the container, into the containers-based configuration. And I think that there's probably, because we could have a technical conversation about what goes in the deployment piece and then what goes in the container, but that's kind of, that would be a good conference talk, Craig.
It was.
We should collaborate on this.
So you get to a point where you actually put your configuration of your servers, the operating system, and the apps that are on it into config files, and include that in your repository for your application. And so now you can version and get back to the previous version of your configuration.
Okay, and maybe it's my ignorance speaking, but that was going to be my question: is why couldn't you do that? Because again, I'm going to go back to when I was at the railroad. We actually did an upgrade when we went from the 3.1 to the NT, and we had to go around and touch all of these workstations for 1,200 users, and just in one particular department, and it was the call center. So what we did was we hired a company to come in and actually put the removable drive in from the front, and then we took the drives. I had the team that actually owned the team that would go out. We would take these drives, and I'm going to date myself here, and used Ghost, where we actually duplicated all the drives with the operating system, the applications that we needed, and when we sent these folks, because going from 3.1 to NT was a big change in how people operated with their screens and what they were used to seeing. So we sent them to class to learn how to navigate through NT, and when they came back to their desk, we had our team go through, pull out the old hard drive and put in the new one. But what I'm saying is we actually used Ghost, and we made sure that everything, all the operating systems and all of the applications that they needed by that department was there, because we actually did some pre-work that went out and said, what do you need, what are you using?
I want to work for the railroads now. If they were that advanced back then.
Well, they used to call our department bleeding edge technology.
Well, on that note, so here's a challenge. Here's a challenge for our listeners. There's one of the, I think it was a XP practice. It was called the 10-minute build, and it meant that you could build and deploy your software and test it in 10 minutes or less. I would like to propose that has now evolved because really of the DevOps community to say that now what your 10-minute build should be is you build your software, you test your software, and then you provision from nothing a runtime environment that will run your software, and then you deploy your software to that runtime environment. So your build should be inclusive of provisioning a container, basically that's brand new every time, and that ideally if you want to test, is probably going to be hydrated with test data. And you need to be able to do that in 10 minutes or less.
So virtual machines help a lot there.
Help a lot, but really it's the container piece, because you can have a VM and VMs can all get out of sync. And so, anyways, well, the timer did go off. We could probably do a lightning round, because we do have to kind of wrap things up. We are to host the venue here. We actually are meeting face to face tonight for this episode of This Agile Life. So, how do you guys want to wrap it up? You want to do one more of these, or you want to do a takeaway for everyone around the table? Who wants to do one more topic? Okay, and then who wants to do a takeaway? Okay, guess what? One more topic won. So we'll do one more topic, then we're just going to probably shut it down real quick. So who would like to pick the last topic? Any volunteers? Let's go to volunteer this time. Craig's looking at them. Craig, you pick a topic.
Teams struggling a little bit on integrating code reviews into process.
Okay, so code reviews and process. Last topic, 5 minutes. Yes. Jim's getting us started. Go.
Yes. So our team, recently introduced the use of code reviews, and I think we talked about what specific purpose do we want for these, but we had maybe a little trouble deviating that, because people, right? What code reviews mean can vary, right, from place to place, and people bring that baggage along with them, or their own personal desires about when they look at someone else's code and they want to fix up certain things. So I'm not sure where I'm going with this.
Was your team knowing a little bit about it? Was where in your process has your team tried to integrate your code review?
It is a step after, what would have been a step between what was, the story is the development is complete and moving into the QA validation.
Okay. So. Which does not, for your team, include a branch merge.
Correct.
Because this team operates on what they call a stable master, where they are constantly checking into master. So there is no merge point where, okay, the story branch is done and it's ready to be reviewed and merged. To set some context.
Okay, so
that's almost a prerequisite, though, right?
Yeah. So just digging a little deeper here. So is the question, you guys, you think they should do code reviews and the team isn't? Is the question that the team doesn't know where to put it? Or
no, I think the team generally agrees on the value of them. I think we just struggled a little bit with their purpose and perhaps keeping the focus of the code what's the code review supposed to do? How do we keep it from becoming too much? Becoming like a few more people totally revamp the code just because they evaluate.
Well, I mean, drifting into Sarbanes-Oxley land. I mean, really, the whole point of the code review, according to them, is the Superman 2 problem. Hey, are we rounding off money and funneling it into a bank account and stuff like that? And that's really the whole reason it's there. It's like. It's not like Sarbanes-Oxley says, yes, you must do this particular code practice. Pascal casing, you're fired.
So there is a danger of that's not how I would do it. Let's redo it. Try not to fall into that trap. As long as it meets the goals, you don't need to rewrite it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's maintainable. It's, hey, if somebody's doing something really odd, like I know when Brian Button, he was here earlier, he tried to get us all to one-line methods. And if he was doing your code review, it was like 3 lines, too long.
But Joe, no kidding. Jim, do you have documented either working agreements or done criteria for your code reviews?
Yes, we do now.
Good. Okay, because I see a lot of teams that they try to do code review, and it's like, what is this mysterious thing called code review? I do it one way, Melanie does it another way, Chris does it another way, and
is it followed?
And is it agreed?
Well, when it was very new, and I will admit to being one of the guilty parties here, it was I kind of shifted into my old habit of what were code reviews like at my previous employer, or what did I personally feel they should be, and then kind of had to be reminded that we're really focusing on.
So if I showed up tomorrow, could I see your criteria for code reviews for your team? Would they be somewhere transparent?
I can show you. Yes, at the very least, I can show you a Post-it note.
Hold on.
So I've recommended a checklist.
Yeah.
I've recommended a checklist of things to look for. Now, on the other hand, I recommend not focusing on the style details. Because what happens is you focus on the style, hey, you did it wrong, although that one I would really
the team's actually pretty good at that. That was clear up front that's
try not to focus on the small things, focus on the bigger issues, like, is it maintainable? What's the best thing I've ever heard, actually?
Yeah, it kind of going from that, it's, hey, set goals for your code review. You guys agree to your things, but it's like, ask your team, why are we doing this in the first place? Is it because we've got a brand new person on the team and we want to make sure that who's never written commercial style code? You're like, okay, well, then we got to get them up and running. Or is it just because you guys all want to make sure that nobody's going out and just including open source libraries just because they can, stuff like that? I mean, there's all sorts of stuff.
Or is it because we feel we're not pair switching enough, and so we have to introduce code review as a way to recover the code?
Okay, time out. And with hearing, and this just now comes up.
And with that, guess what, guys? We are going to practice Scrum tonight because we are done. So we actually need to leave. So we're actually going to turn off, and we thank everyone for listening and listen to this. We'll probably put a wrap on this. But thank you to our participants tonight here at St. Louis Agile LINC for participating in this Agile Life. And thanks, guys. Round of applause. Yay.
Automate!
And at that point, we had to cut the podcast since the cleaning crew was coming in to clean the room that we were using to record. So unfortunately, we didn't have time to get picks from everyone, but I did want to take one moment to thank everyone who joined us at the August 2015 St. Louis Agile LINC meeting and participated in our podcast session. So one more time, thanks for Melanie, Tony, Rob, Chris, Joe, Jim, Debbie, and of course, a big thanks goes out to my fellow co-host, Craig Buchek, who was also there at the 2015 St. Louis Agile LINC meeting. And now it's time for everyone's favorite part of the podcast, this week's hottest picks.
This week's hottest picks.
So since I'm here left all by myself, I thought I would give you guys two real quick picks just to check out if you have a moment. First and foremost, I did want to pick the St. Louis Agile LINC user group. That's our large Agile user group here in the St. Louis, Missouri area. And as you guys heard, we just did a podcast at the meeting they had back in August. So if you happen to be in St. Louis or you're around the Midwest, you might want to check out a future St. Louis Agile LINC meeting. We'll put a link to where you can find out more information about the group in the show notes, and they use a LinkedIn community, so you'll have to join that community. We'll put the link We'll put the link to LinkedIn in the show notes so you can check that out. Last but not least, just something for fun. I was recently on a flight back to St. Louis from LA, and there was a Tom Cruise impersonator sitting next to me. So we had some fun with Twitter. His name was Evan Ferrante, and he was actually coming to St. Louis to do a movie. But nonetheless, he has a YouTube channel that's just a bunch of Tom Cruise funny stuff that he's put together, and it was a fun flight. We talked pretty much the whole way back and shared a bunch of stories, and if you saw my post on Twitter, no kidding, he actually has a big data idea for some stuff about film. So cool guy, a really smart guy, and hopefully his activities in St. Louis went well. But check out his YouTube channel. He's just got a bunch of funny stuff on there. So, but guess what, everybody? That's all the time we have today. So we want to thank you for listening. If you have any comments, feel free to look us up on Twitter, or you can look us up on the web at www.thisagilelife.com. And of course, that's about it. So thanks for listening, and keep living this Agile life.
This Agile Life is brought to you by a community of Agile developers and coaches aspiring to spread the word about this groundbreaking approach to software development. Join us at thisagilelife.com/community.